This video, I'm going to be demonstrating how to read in the text of a file, just a regular text file in Java. Now, my idea here is I'm going to basically take a text file that contains 100 random numbers, and I'm going to read them all in one at a time, and then basically figure out the average value of it. So on my desktop right now, I've got a file called randnums.txt. Now on a Mac, if I try and open it, sometimes it's kind of weird. I have to go open with text editor for it to actually work. But this is what it looks like. It should be plain text with no special characters or anything like that. So hopefully this will work. And let's see what happens here. So let's get going. I'm going to create a new project. And I'm going to call this thing AVG for average read file. All right. Just going to clean up my comments here. And let's get going here. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a buffered reader. Now, a buffered reader, the code looks like this. So buffered reader read file equals new buffered reader bracket new file reader bracket, and I'm going to call this thing randnums.txt. I know this is not correct. I'm going to fix it, but I'm just going to go over a few things here. So you're going to get your import. You're going to give you errors, so you're going to right click and fix your imports, and it's going to add everything in. Now, it does not like this. It says there's an unreported exception or a file not found exception. And so there's two ways of fixing this. The easiest, but also the laziest way of doing it is to just do this. Throws IO exception right here. And you right click, fix the imports on that. And that will fix your error. Okay. This is not necessarily the best way of doing it because you're basically saying that anywhere in your program you can throw an IO exception and just exit it. It doesn't allow you to gracefully deal with the problem. So this is not the best way of doing it. What you want to do actually is to surround all this stuff with a try and catch. So the way it works is right here. We're going to write try, put a curly bracket, tab that over. We're going to close the try. We're going to catch any IO exceptions. And I usually give this thing a name IOE. It's sort of short for IO exception. It's like a variable name here. I can call this whatever I want. I can call it X. I can call it whatever I want. But the class name is IO exception. And I'm just going to type system.err for error, print line, error, opening file. And in fact, what I might even add in is the IOE. I might actually print the exception itself so you can see. Okay, so I'm going to explain the line. I'm going to run it. It will have a problem, and I will show you exactly what's happening. Okay, so what's happening here is we're creating this buffer reader, and the buffer reader contains a file reader inside of it. Okay. The problem is that when you read in the text, say from the randnums.txt, these things tend to come in as small chunks. Like you can think of it as like they come in as bytes, or they come in as characters. Now, say you need to read like full sentences, one character at a time or one byte at a time is kind of problematic. So the way this thing works is the file reader will read in the character one at a time, or the byte one at a time, and the buffer reader will turn those things into sentences and lines. And the sentences and lines are very, very easy for me to use. So that's all this does. This basically opens up the file in a way that I'm going to be able to access them in a real easy manner. There are other ways of opening files and reading files in Java. This is just the way that I choose to do it. So let's run it, and we're going to get an error, almost guaranteed. Okay, the problem is that this is in the wrong spot. Run it. And we got error opening file, and we got a file not found exception. It says no such file or directory. Okay, so there's two ways I can fix this. So the number one way is to actually give it a path. So for me, this file right now is actually on my desktop. So I'm going to get the info of it. It's different if you're on a Windows machine. But you need to figure out the path of where this thing is. So it's actually right here. That's my path. So if I copy that, and put that in there. That should fix it. Let's try that. Perfect, no error, okay? That's the easy fix. What you could also do is figure out where your project is stored and actually drop those files into that folder. And then you don't have to specify the path if it's in the right spot. So for me, if I go under Mac HD, and then I go under Users, okay, P Rosa, that's me, and my NetBeans projects are inside of here. I've got a lot of projects happening, right? This program is called AVG Read File. I believe the file, if you put it right in this folder here, you can have it without any kind of a path name. I'm just going to copy it and we'll try. Paste the item. If it's in the root of your folder right there, then you don't have to specify a path. So let's just try here. I'm going to copy that line. Paste it again, and I'm going to remove the path. And it should access the one that's in that root folder. Let's see if we get an error. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. There we go. So I did put it in the right spot. I should be able to see it under the Files tab, which I can. It's right here. Okay. So Projects is what I'm normally looking at, but under Files, I can see it now. It's in the root of my project. So you could do whatever you want. You can write the absolute path to it. That's what I did here. Or you could just make sure the file is inside your program. This is probably preferred. The reason that this is preferred to me is because, say I need to export my project, right? This is sort of like an external file. It's not really inside the project. If it gets zipped, it won't save this with it, right? Like imagine I'm saving this text file, right? That's not a good spot for it to save. This one though, because it's actually inside the folder, if I export my project, it will contain that file with it. So it's a lot better to do it this way, I think. So that's just my advice to you. Okay, so I've got my text file. Let's actually read it in. So the way I'm going to read this in, I'm first going to make an integer array. So int, I'm going to call it inMarks, square brackets, equals new int square bracket 100. The text file I have there, I know it has 100 lines, and that's why I'm doing size 100. I'm going to make a string variable called myLine. That's just going to be like a temporary thing as I read files in. And I'm just going to write system.out.println contents of randnums.txt. Just a nice little print before I do anything. All right. Now I've got my my buffer reader is done. I need to now read in 100 lines from the text file. Oops, I spelled lines wrong. So we're going to use a loop. So for int I equals 0, I less than 100, I plus plus. And the way we do this is we go like this. We write myLine equals read file, because that's the name I gave my buffer reader right here. Read file dot read line. That's the most common one you're going to use right here. This reads in a line of text. So a line of text would be like the first line is 10, second line is 72. But again, when it reads the 72, it doesn't understand it's the number 72. It just sees the character 7 followed by the character 2. So it's treating it like a string right now. So what I've got to do now is convert that into an integer. So I'm going to write inMarks at location I equals integer dot parseInt of myLine. And actually, I'm going to print out the myLine too. I want to actually print out the thing, so I'll do it above here. System out println myLine. So I want to actually see the 72, the 10, things like that. So this will store it into the array. Once that's all done, I'm going to close it. Read file dot close. Always make sure you close your files. You're going to open them up and then close them. Let's run it right now and make sure we can actually see all of our information here. Get no errors, hopefully. All right. Got it. The first one's a 10, the last one's a 21. Make sure that matches. All right, we've got 100 lines, 100 things were read in. Perfect. Okay. The next thing we're going to do now that we've got all of our information stored, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make a separate method here to do this. I want to figure out my average. So this is my main right now. I'm going to make another method below it. And I'm going to write public static double find average. And I'm going to send in int values like this. So what's going to happen is in my method, I'm going to return back a double, and I'm going to take an array of integers as my input. So I'm going to basically add them all up and then divide it by the number of numbers. So here's how we do it. We're going to say int sum equals 0. Actually, it's just double for this. We can allow decimals and stuff. So sum is going to be 0. For int I equals 0, I less than values dot length. That'll be how many there are. So if there's 100 items, it'll run 100 times. I plus plus. And we're going to say sum plus equals values at location I. So plus equals just means add to it. It's the same as me writing sum equals sum plus values at I. It's the same exact thing. It's just a short form of this. Okay, so that'll add them all up into our sum. And then once that's all done, we're going to double AVG for average equals sum divided by values dot length. And then finally, we're going to return the average, just like that. Okay, return average. You could have just gone return sum divided by the values dot length. Maybe that's a little bit quicker actually, but it does the same thing. So we figure out our average and then we return it. Okay, so how do we use this in our main program now? So down here, we've got all of the stuff read in already. We have a variable called inmarks. That's what we're going to use. So we're going to write system.out.println the average value of the random numbers is, and then we're going to go system.out.println find average of, what do we call that thing again? Inmarks. Just like that. That should work. Let's find out. Hopefully everything goes good. And that is it. There we go. So the average value of these numbers was 47.93. This is the list of the numbers. And it called this little method I made at the bottom. I could have obviously done all this stuff inside the main, but I wanted to show you how you could sort of jump to a separate method and do your calculations and then come back. What this does is it simplifies your main and just cleans up the code a little bit better. So anyways, I'm hoping that, yeah, my catch is fine. It gave me a warning about a try catch with resource, but I'm going to leave it like that. I hope you learned a little bit about the buffer reader, how it works. And again, use this function called readLine. That will read in a line of text, one single line of text out of the text file. And then I can take that line and convert it to an integer, and then I can do my math once I've done that. So this is a little demo of how you can read in information using a text file in Java.